Hello, and let me tell you about a new upcoming DEX token that might be of interest to you. I know I'm going to invest, so stay tuned for the details. But before that, a DEX stands for a decentralized exchange, which is one of the recent developments in fintech, and perhaps the most well-known, the most used decentralized exchange, the most used DEX, is a uniswap, where you can swap your Ethereum or any other ERC20 tokens to any other tokens that you wish to get. DEXs have already existed for a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, but since about the second half of last year, 2020, they've started introducing these utility tokens attached to the DEXs, and the holders of those utility tokens benefit from a portion of the fees that DEXs collect. Today I want to introduce a new upcoming utility token for a DEX, which is PulseX. The ticker for that will be plsx. It's going to come up in perhaps another 2 or 3 or 4 months. And PulseX is going to be a utility token sitting on the upcoming new fork of Ethereum, Pulse Chain. I've talked about Pulse Chain a couple of months ago, so the link to that video is at the top of your screen right now. Briefly, in a sentence about Pulse Chain, the reason for Pulse Chain to come up is very high average transaction fee on Ethereum. Here's the chart of a transaction fee on Ethereum, and as you see, during this year, the transaction fees have basically gone up by 10x or higher. They've increased by tenfold or much higher. So Pulse Chain is going to be another fork of Ethereum that's going to reduce the load of Ethereum, help the Ethereum users in that way. But there is one important, huge, colossal difference between Pulse Chain and all those other forks of Ethereum, such as Binance Smart Chain, in that Pulse Chain is going to come with all or almost all of the existing ERC20 tokens. You know that Ethereum as a chain is holding a lot of other tokens in the form of ERC20 smart contracts. Here's the list of some of the popular ERC20 tokens. Among them are some of the well-known names such as Tether, Chainlink, Shiba Inu, and so on. A lot of the previous Ethereum forks came empty with projects gradually building on top of those empty chains. In this case, Pulse Chain is going to fork Ethereum, including all of its current state. So if you are holding any of those ERC20 tokens listed here and beyond, once Pulse Chain is launched, you'll have your forked Ethereums and all of your forked ERC20 tokens on the Pulse Chain, which will be called PRC20 tokens. So that's a bit of an echo to that previous video on Pulse Chain. But talking about a new upcoming DEX token, DEXs have been quite popular for a couple of years. Here's a breakdown of some of the largest DEXs by 24-hour volume. Around 60% of volume is held by Uniswap. Around 10% of the volume is held by the second and third largest decentralized exchanges each, which is SUSHI Swap and 1inch. The total volume on all decentralized exchanges, though, is still below that on centralized cryptocurrency exchanges, never mind any other areas of financial industry. So in my opinion, there is still a lot of potential for substantial growth over the next several years, and even perhaps over the next half a year to a year, especially if the ongoing crypto bull market continues. Here we see that the total volume of all existing DEXs, that's volume per month, has basically exploded since the second half of 2020. And without doing any actual calculations, if you just try to put some sort of a curve through basically close to the midpoints of these bars, you might perhaps argue that if the crypto bull market continues for another half a year to a year, the volume on decentralized exchanges will continue to grow. Hence, there are still attractive opportunities to get into this industry, and that's exactly what PulseX is doing. PulseX, somewhat similar to a pancake swap, is going to be a fork of that decentralized exchange, which instead of sitting on Ethereum chain, it's going to sit on the Pulse chain. So PulseX will stand for Pulse Exchange. And the utility token on this new upcoming decentralized exchange is going to be PulseX plsx. Talking about some potential gains for the upcoming plsx utility token, let's compare that to the top 3 utility tokens of the 3 largest decentralized exchanges, which are the UNI on Uniswap, SUSHI on SUSHISwap, and 1inch on 1inch exchange. The tokenomics of these utility tokens is that they do provide some ability to manage governance of the proposals, such as perhaps distributing some of the coins in the community treasury and so on. And perhaps even more importantly, a portion of the fees collected by the DEXs, decentralized exchanges, is used to reward the holders of these tokens. For example, on Uniswap and SUSHISwap, whenever you are using these exchanges, 0.25% is paid as fees, and 1/5 of that, that's 0.05%, is used to reward the holders of the UNI and SUSHI tokens. Similar thing is happening on 1inch exchange, but the percentages, the rates, are somewhat variable. Let's compare that to PLX, where we see somewhat of a similar model. So far, a lot of the websites describing PLSX haven't mentioned anything about the governance, but Richard Hart mentioned in one of his recent streams that PulseX is going to be used in governance as well. The whole DEX, the PulseX exchange, similar to a lot of other exchanges, is going to charge 0.25% fee, and 0.05%, so 1/5 of that 0.25%, is going to be used to buy back and burn PulseX, creating a bit of a constant buy pressure on PulseX. In addition, out of that 0.25%, 0.03% will go to the community treasury. Whether PulseX holders will jointly have ownership over that community treasury, that's still a little bit unclear. And the remaining part of 0.17% is going to be used to reward the liquidity providers, the market makers on the DEX. So the tokenomics is somewhat similar to the top 3 DEXs on the left. So perhaps the performance of the coin might be comparable as well. Let's have a look at the charts. We see Uniswap coming into market at least on Binance at around $0.8. And after a bit of a spike to $8, it dropped back down to $2.3. After that, we see a couple of peaks on Uniswap. That's in late spring this year and late autumn this year. That actually coincides with a couple of peaks in Bitcoin, late spring and late autumn this year, when Bitcoin punched above $62,000. Talking about the gains, since the start at $0.8 to the peak of around $44, we have about 55x in gains. That, of course, is very attractive, but that is for a DEX that is controlling 60% of all DEX's volume. That's quite a lot to ask for. Next, looking at SUSHISwap, it came out at about $3.2 and dropped after that all the way down to $0.6 or so. But again, we see a couple of peaks in late spring and late autumn this year. The peaks say somewhere around $23. That's actually below the brief peak at $24. Let's say $23, giving us 7.2x gains from this listing price of $3.2. And 1inch came out at about $1.1, also spiked to above $4, coming back down after that. So there is a bit of a pattern with all of these tokens. Perhaps after initial spike, PLSX might also temporarily come back down significantly. But coming back to 1inch, again we see a couple of spikes in late spring and late autumn. Being conservative, let's take the top at around $7 rather than that punch above $8, giving us around 6.4x gains from the listing price of around $1.1. So to summarize, here's a small table. Uniswap, controlling 60% of the volume, gave around 55x gains from $0.8 to $44. SUSHI and 1inch, controlling around 10% each, gave around 6 to 7x returns. Now for plsx, if it doesn't even manage to catch up with SUSHI and 1inch, it's at least likely to do a 5x in my opinion. Remember, it's coming up with all of the ERC20 tokens on the chain. So thousands and thousands of those ERC20 tokens being given a free fork of ERC20 tokens might of course try to trade some of their free ERC20 tokens, creating a lot of volumes on Pulse Exchange, and a percentage of that volume is going to be used to create a buy pressure on PulseX. Next, assuming that PulseX only manages to keep up with SUSHI and 1inch, we might expect somewhere around 7x gains on PulseX. And what I think is more likely in my opinion, perhaps PulseX will do slightly better than SUSHI and 1inch. So slightly better than 7x gains, well, maybe somewhere around 10x gains. So with the members at myfinancesteacher.org, a couple of months ago, we have already invested in the upcoming fork of Ethereum, Pulse, and we're also going to throw some money at PulseX as well, perhaps over the next couple of weeks. So for more on that and a lot of other assets, consider joining us at myfinancesteacher.org, where I post regular updates on a range of assets, including precious metals, general stock markets, a lot of different commodities and energy. Have a nice day and bye-bye.